Council to take the floor for 5 minutes, please.
I believe we'll start with my colleague Mutassim Ali, actually, if that's all right. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Vice Chairs, and members of the committee. This is a great opportunity, but I also notice that this opportunity seems to be manipulated now by some to misrepresent the facts. I'm a legal advisor at the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights, a doctoral researcher on peace and constitution making in post-conflict states, and I'm a Sudanese from Al-Fashir. I come before you not as a scholar or advocate, but as a witness, as someone who has seen my homeland repeatedly subjected to mass atrocities that were neither unpredictable nor unpreventable. Before the genocide in Al Janina in West Darfur in June 2023, the warning signs were clear. The Masalit community faced an imminent threat, with perpetrators, the RSF, and allied militia, publicly vowing to wipe out the Nawab, a slur for slaves, on launching systematic dehumanization campaigns. These crimes, the crimes committed in Al Janina, were preventable. The world heard the threats and saw the violence escalate, yet did not act. Al Janina was almost emptied of its Masalit majority. A few months later, the same machinery targeted North Darfur, beginning with the Zagao community. In April 2025, Zamzam IDP camp was attacked by the RSF and its allied militia. Last month, after 18 months of siege, the RSF and allied militia captured Al-Fashir. Doctors were killed by the RSF. Those were not Muslim Brotherhood. Perpetrators documented their crimes by themselves. They were boasting about committing genocide. Such horrors were not spontaneous. They were financed, equipped, and politically insulated. External actors, including Canada's ally, the United Arab Emirates, continue to back the perpetrators. International institutions meant to protect the vulnerable are being manipulated to shield those responsible. What we have seen is not the end. Al-Fashir is part of a broader campaign. The next major community at risk is Darfur. We're still in the midst of this campaign, and it remains preventable. History has placed before us and before you a choice. The world knows and was warned. The question is whether the world and this committee will act. The victims of Darfur and Sudan are not asking for sympathy, but for protection of international law, the protection international law promises, and for accountability that justice demands. Let us not stand by as another community is marked for destruction. Thank you, and I yield the rest of my time to my colleague, Your Honor.
And the time for action for Sudan is right now, as the situation has reached an international emergency. Finally garnering the political will necessary to act. You now have the opportunity. So as parliamentarians, you have the power to take a host of practical measures. One, you can move the House to formally recognize RSF atrocities as genocide, a long overdue step towards justice, and more timely than ever in the wake of Al-Fashir. Anyone still calling this only a civil war is either not paying attention or is willfully covering up atrocities and an apologist for atrocities on the ground. It's genocide, and it's a war on children, as we've documented in 2 comprehensive reports, and I'm happy to elaborate later on. 2, end Canadian complicity in the genocide by stopping Canadian-made weapons from reaching the perpetrators and their enablers. There are Canadian-owned companies, for instance, sourcing RSF weapons without consequence today. This is simply a matter of enforcing our laws on the books. 3, use our sanctions regime to target the key perpetrators and their enabling entities. We'll follow up again with a list of names. 4, on the diplomatic front, push for a civilian protection mechanism. Enforce the arms embargo. And use every opportunity to confront the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, for fueling this genocidal campaign as the main backer of the RSF. 5, take legal action at the ICJ against implicated states. 6, tighten legislative and regulatory scrutiny over supply chains linked to the conflict, particularly mineral processing and the gold trade. 7, increase emergency measures, immigration measures, and raise caps.
Excuse me, once again, please. Sorry, go ahead.
My apologies, my apologies. 7, increase emergency immigration measures and raise caps to reunite Sudanese Canadian families and end the discriminatory treatment and expedite all pending applications. 8, scale up humanitarian aid to meet the staggering needs. 9, use your platforms to issue urgent statements to bring attention to Darfuri communities facing destruction right now and mobilize colleagues to support these measures. And finally, we're proud to launch today and tomorrow a historic all-party coalition for Sudan, a revival of the Save Darfur coalition, as was mentioned by our founder, the Honorable Erwin Kotler, and invite each of you to join and bring colleagues on board. We're committed to working with Parliament and civil society to implement this action plan, to ensure Canadians no longer remain bystanders to mass killing, starvation, genocide, and the world's largest humanitarian catastrophe that is shamefully being ignored.
Thank you, Mr. Diamond.